Former, current sex toy shop employees, what's your best customer story? Not a sex toy shop anything, but when I was younger, my mom worked for an Avon-like company that sold sex toys and lube and what all. I have a few fun stories from that. One day, my mom had to take my sister and I to one of the parties she was hosting at a woman's house. We got bored pretty quickly and started walking around the house while my mom explained various devices and products. I was creepily standing in the doorway to the room where the party was occurring, waiting for my mom to turn around so I could ask her if I could have some of the Rotel dip. I was probably 6 to 7 years old. One of the women sees me and goes bug-eyed. My mom asks her what's wrong and she points at me. My mom turns around holding a 3-foot-long double-headed dildo and screams at me to leave. I did. 2. There was a numbing cream that came from this company called Like a Virgin, that my mother used on us for tooth pain and various other things that needed topical anesthesia. At one point, I went to pick up some fast food with an old family friend who was talking about her friend getting a tattoo. I piped up and said my dad just got a tattoo. My mom put Like a Virgin on him before he went so it wouldn't hurt as bad. The family friend was dying of laughter at this point and no one would explain to me why. 3. Less exciting, but there was a tingling balm for nipples called Bosom Buddies that we often used as plumping lip balm. The packaging wasn't vulgar but the company style was very distinct. I pulled a jar of it out at school once. Hilarity ensued when my teacher asked me where I got it and I said my mom gave it to me. I asked her if she wanted some. She blushed super hard and told my principal I was using a sex product in class. He looked at it and asked her how she knew it was a sex product. It certainly didn't look like one. I'm guessing she had used it before. Bonus. My mom also had a flesh-colored double-headed dildo that I called Wormy. I thought it was an earthworm. Not employee but customer. I just turned 18 and went off to college in the big city. I go to the nearest local porn store because they have a huge XXX arcade sign on the side. I go in all excited to the back room to try out this XXX arcade. It was not X-rated Mortal Kombat or Zelda. I was so disappointed. My roommates made fun of me for weeks. In the early 1990s, a friend of mine owned a porn store. It was like most of them, with movies, magazines, sex toys, and those booths you could sit in and watch porn flicks in. We called them the Jack Sheds. As you might imagine, it was difficult keeping employees as most people didn't really want to work at a place like this, so on occasion I would do him a favor and work a shift if he needed it. There were a few things that happened that stand out. A woman came in who was very rough looking. She looked like the after on those meth warning pictures. I was watching her closely because I thought she might try to steal something. A guy came in and started talking to her. As they talked, another person came in and asked me a few questions, then bought something and left. I looked back over and saw that the guy and the rough-looking woman were now in the back corner of the store. I yelled at them and the guy took off and ran out of the store. The woman walked up to the counter, bare ass naked, and told me she was desperate for cock and told me she had met that guy on some phone chat line. She then asked if we had any loaner dildos. I told her no and that she needed to get dressed. She just walked out of the store completely naked. Had a guy come in and try to buy underage porn from me. He was certain I had the good stuff behind the counter. When I told him it was illegal and I wanted him to leave, he started browsing, asking if we carried any gay porn where the guys looked really young. I called the police and they arrived while he was still browsing and arrested him. Turns out he was a registered sex offender. Countless people coming all over the Jack Sheds. It got to the point where if anyone asked for change for the booth, I would offer them some paper towels and ask them not to spray everywhere. It never worked. They sprayed their spunk everywhere. A woman came in and complained for about 10 minutes because she had bought some cinnamon-flavored lube and now complained that she put it on her ass during anal sex and caused her to have an inflamed asshole. She wanted me to give her $500 for pain and suffering. She even felt the need to lift her skirt, drop her panties and show me said asshole. I told her to come back when the owner was here. She bitched that she couldn't even sit down. My favorite. A guy came in and got change for one of the Jack Sheds. These booths were in the back of the building through a doorway. A couple then came in and they were walking around browsing things, talking etc. They were near the door that led to the Jack Sheds when that guy in the booth had an orgasm and screamed so loudly the guy in the couple jumped. but the girl screamed and fell to the floor. She then got up, humiliated, and left. I could see the wet spot on the front of her jeans. The dude had came so loudly he caused a girl to pee her pants in terror. I wonder if I'm someone's favorite story. Years ago I had this uni project to shoot a black and white themed photograph using color film. Having just watched Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, I had the bright idea of getting the biggest, blackest dildo I could find and having some white cream ooze from the tip to look like cum. The sex shop employee where I went to get the goods was really into my idea and pretty much went through their entire inventory just to give me the perfect vein-ridden dildo, and then went on to instruct me to buy a particular brand of sunblock that they knew for a fact had the consistency of cum. I was 19 and worked at this shack-looking sex shop, sketch central of town, and if I didn't get free shit and paid to be there I wouldn't be. One evening I'm working with my buddy and I can hear him talking to a familiar voice. It was a voice I tried recalling, but all I could recall was that it was someone of influence to me. Well, I automatically hid, thinking it might be my dad, and well, it wasn't. It was my youth pastor from church. We locked eyes. My stomach drops. He goes pale and knocked the out. Side note, I know we're human and sex is normal. It was just a shock to see him there, as he preaches that masturbation is a sin and says, smut is from the devil for the impure. Jews don't recognize that Jesus is the Messiah. Protestants don't recognize the Pope as head of the church. Southern Baptists don't recognize each other in the liquor store. Pastors don't recognize their flocks in smut houses. Back in the days of VHS rentals, I worked at a small pawn shop. Every Sunday it was my job to run a report of all the overdue movies, and start making phone calls. I get halfway through the list and I hit this one guy who has a bunch of movies out and has already racked up a sizable bill. I ring his number, and a sweet old lady answers the phone. I ask if John Doe is there, and she tells me that is her grandson and he's out right now. So, I tell her he has a bunch of movies overdue and needs to bring them back and settle up. She innocently asks me what movies does he have. First one on the list, Slamming Granny in the Fanny. I hung up. I worked a porn movie and sex toy shack for about a year. There were promos for staff to try and sell higher-end toys. If you sold a bunch you got a bonus. We all had different sales tactics. There was one super fancy vibrator I was hyping up. I had one in the package at the counter with a note saying husband replacement unit. An old dad came in to get a stack of rentals, thus dating how long ago this was. Pops looked at the sign, took the toy, and placed it on the floor, arms on his sides looking down at it. Well, it doesn't cut the grass, so I still have a job. Rentals on the house for a month. God, such a perfect job for a pervy slacker. Good times. A woman came in who wanted to know if we had any extra large vibrators or dildos. Her job involved being very secluded, so she'd met a guy online who would come and her every so often, and he was a black guy with a huge cock. She'd now gotten used to this, as he was apparently 12 plus and nearly the thickness of a drink can, allegedly. We didn't have anything of the size she required, so at my suggestion she bought a double-ended dildo which was pretty thick to use both ends in her vagina at the same time. A girl who had the opposite problem. Her vagina was too small for most vibrators. I had a feeling that this was a bit more of a chat-up line than an actual problem though. Despite not being attractive, I'd get a lot of women flirting with me. One even forgot that she was naked and walked out of the changing room to chat with me. An old gent came in and wanted to experiment with sex toys, as he and his wife's sex life was somewhat dead. I spent a while going through options with him and he seemed happy with his purchases, so that was that. A week later an oldish woman came into the shop on my day off to see me to say thank you because their sex life was now incredible. She actually burst into tears while talking to my colleagues because it had made such a difference. A woman came in looking for a sexy going out outfit for a big dance festival, and she wanted to make her recently ex-boyfriend envious. Her two friends were impatient, showing her these outfits which were totally covering her up and generally being dicks. I suggested to them that they head off and the woman could phone them when she was done, as she could be a while, so thankfully they took off. This woman had been properly run down by her ex and her friends were no different. I explained to her that her friends knew that she had a better figure and were trying to not be outshined by her and that she should try on the outfit she particularly liked despite her friends having said that it would look terrible on her. She sheepishly said that it wouldn't suit her, but I disagreed, so she tries it and loves it. At nearly 6 foot with a size 8 US size 4 body and huge chest, she was beaming at how great she looked, so she bought the outfit. I had a chat with her about how she needed to value herself because she was hot ASF and really a sweet person, but she was surrounded by people putting her down. She came back after the festival to say that she'd realized her friends were bitches. Her ex was trying it on with her, but she'd told him to drop dead and was starting a new chapter. The surreal one was an old fella who had never used sex toys, but he wanted to try with his new wife, so I had to explain how everything in the shop worked. We got to cock rings and he asked about one called a double helix, so I explained that one ring went around the base of the penis while the other went around the scrotum. He replied, "Oh, that's no good cause I don't have one." The guy had been in for a small surgical procedure and had caught a necrotizing bug while in hospital which had eaten away the skin on his stomach and his crotch, including his scrotum. He still had his penis and his testicles were unaffected, but they'd had to be inserted into the insides of his thighs. Apparently he looked like a burns victim when naked, and he was amazed that he'd met someone since then who didn't mind his appearance, so he wanted to be the best lover he could. Truly incredible guy.